Hello and welcome to Feminist Frequency's Star Trek podcast. Today we're diving into Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episodes 10 and 11. I'm your host, Anita Sarkeesian, and you know the drill. It's December, so before we get into it, we are at the end of the year where we have our big end of the year campaign to help support all the work that Feminist Frequency does. Our main mission right now is to end abuse in the games industry. And, you know, we make these podcasts that you seem to enjoy because you keep coming back for them. So if you want to help us keep doing all of this work, go to feministfrequency.com/donate. All right, I am very excited. I'm excited every week. Our guests, we have the best guests on this show. Okay, so first, we have Steve Shives back. You know him. I'm on his show. He's on our show. He's in every season. He don't need introductions anymore. But
I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet for the whole hour.
That is not true, even a little bit. But Steve's a YouTuber who makes videos where he talks about Star Trek and other things that you know, the bio says other things you won't find as interesting, but I'm going to say other things you didn't know that he talks about. Because when I came on his show, I just assumed he would talk about Star Trek. And he's like, God damn it, we can talk about whatever you want. And guess what?
I'm sick of Star Trek.
We talked about Star Trek anyways.
We did. We did for like 3/4 of the show. And then we talked about Patrick Swayze a little. So
God, we really should start a Patrick Swayze podcast.
I would be so down for that.
Yeah. All right. And we are joined also by Annalee Newitz, who you have been in our Feminist Frequency radio podcast, but you've never been on our Star Trek podcast.
I know. I feel like I'm doing like the deep cut of feminist frequencies.
Yeah, I love it. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Annalee Newitz writes science fiction and nonfiction. They are the author of the book Four Lost Cities, A Secret History of the Urban Age, and the novels The Future of Another Timeline, which that was dope. It's feminist science fiction travel through time. Super good. Y'all should check that out. And you should check out the Feminist Frequency radio episode where we talked about feminist time travel. And also you wrote Autonomous, which I'm sure is delightful. I haven't read it. I'm sorry. That was a very sad follow-up to the other one.
It has gay robot sex, so, you know, check it out at some point when you need that in your life.
I think I do. Yeah. I think I do need that. I think this is the right time for that.
Yeah, it's the season.
Which won the Lambda Literary Award. As a science journalist, they are a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times and have a monthly column in New Scientist. They're also the co-host of the Hugo Award-winning podcast, Our Opinions Are Correct, which you've heard of already because Charlie Jane Anders was also on an episode of our show. I'm bragging about how cool all my friends are. And because the podcast is fantastic.
This is like a big crossover season for us, basically.
Yeah, it really feels like it. And previously, they were the founder of IO9 and served as the editor-in-chief of Gizmodo. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have both of you here.
I have so many feelings about these episodes, too, especially because it's like the second half of a two-parter and the first half of a two-parter. So we get to just, you know, spoil everything.
I timed this very badly. Would you like to know what happened? Our listeners know because it happened live on air and Charlie Jane was the reason for it. I was like, there's only 3 more episodes left. And Charlie Jane was like, no, there isn't. I was like, fuck, I gotta schedule one more like whole chunk. And I had already like scheduled people and I didn't want to move things around too much and blah, 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 blah. So like normally I would have done the 2-parters together. Obviously that would make more sense. But you know, we're just fly by the seat of our pants here at Feminist Frequency. We like to have such a variety of opinions, breaking things in half. So
this is liminality, you know? Like we're at the edge of 2 double episodes. Exactly. I don't even know. It's we need the spore drive to figure it out.
Yes, we do. Okay, so I would love. So we've had Steve on the show before, but Annalee, you've never been on the show. And also, like, we've never talked to you about Star Trek or Discovery. So, you know, like, can you just let us know how you're feeling about this season as we enter into this conversation?
Well, I think it's important that you ask me about my feelings because this season is all about feelings. And it's really been interesting to see the shift from the first 2 seasons to the 3rd season. I mean, obviously, there's been a whole temporal shift and we've gone into the future. But suddenly, our medical doctor / undead gay boyfriend, Culber, has become basically the ship's counselor. Although I guess he's also a medical doctor. I don't know. He's doing everything. Any kind of caretaking you need, he's doing. And I feel like the shift in his character is reflected a lot in this season, dealing with a lot of kind of therapeutic and processy issues. Like, I feel like there's been a lot more about psychology this season. It gives me a big Next Generation feeling, because I feel like in Star Trek Next Generation, a lot of the time there would be these episodes where we dealt with, our crew dealt with other creatures and other civilizations by trying to have like a therapeutic, diplomatic relationship with them, instead of just like shooting and murdering, which is also, fun or whatever. And they'll do that on Picard. But I thought that's one of the things that's really been interesting to me. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in this episode, because of course, one of the episodes is all about how a very sad person who needs therapy is like destroying the universe, which is I very kind of, I
got so,
I know I have so many thoughts. I have many angry thoughts to share about that. But I would say overall, I have enjoyed the turn toward a more therapeutic vision of the future. I love that the science team is like 100% gay mushrooms now. That's been a never-ending source of delight for me. I love that there's trans and non-binary characters. So I would say this is probably my favorite season of the show so far, for all those reasons. So I'm enjoying it. I feel like the show is uneven overall, but it's definitely, I'm a fan, so I'm going to watch no matter what. So, but I'm liking it, is what I'm trying to say.
We're all stuck in that hell loop.
Yeah.
I'm a fan, so I'm going to watch it, and it's going to be miserable, but I'm doing it anyways. I don't feel that way about this season, but I have felt that way previously.
Yeah,
for sure. Where I'm like,
there have been some bad times. There's always been incredible acting. I love the characters. Obviously, Michael Burnham is amazing when they're not kind of forcing her to be like, sidekick to Spock, which was an annoying moment last season, or moments. But yeah, I'm glad, and she has like a cool new boyfriend now, which I love.
Oh, so hot.
Book and Grudge is like one of my new favorite characters. So that's exciting that there's a cat character. So again, that's kind of a callback to Next Generation when Data had Spot the cat. I'm sure we all remember Spot. So
we certainly do. We certainly do.
So there are my feelings. Cool. Thank you for letting me share them.
Yeah.
We
are a pro-feeling podcast here. Okay, well, so why don't we recap the episodes as we do? We steal them directly from the Star Trek website, because why would we bother trying to write our own? That would involve prep work. And then let's dive into it, because I think there's a lot to sink our teeth into on this one. So, Steve, why don't you read to us episode 10?
Alrighty. Episode 10, Terra Firma, Part 2, Georgiou uncovers the true depths of the plot against her, leading her to a revelation about how deeply her time on the USS Discovery truly changed her.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Okay, and then episode 11. Annalie, if you want to read that. Annalie, we just had a whole conversation about how to pronounce your name, and I'm just doing the opposite now. It's fine.
It actually is totally fine. I'm not very perturbed. All right. Episode 11, Su'Kal. Discovery ventures to the Verubin Nebula, where Burnham, Saru, and Culber make a shocking realization about the origin of the burn as the rest of the crew faces an unexpected threat.
Ooh. So fun fact that we learned last week on from Bobak, who is a guest who works at JPL, found out, informed us that the Verubin Nebula is most likely named after a scientist or someone named Verubin who's famous. And I am not sharing the fact, but that is based on a person that did some cool shit. So
nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of hat tips to science. We've also got Stamets.
Especially in this season.
Yeah, it's nice.
They finally actually were like, oh, science, right. That's a real thing in the world that we should, talk to people about.
Uh-huh.
All right, so let's start with episode 10 so we can wrap up the, all the boring shit that happened in this 2-episode arc. So I actually really, really hated episode 9. I hated the first part of this 2-parter. And episode 10, I actually, didn't hate. I think that they like, and I realized I sort of had this I suspected in episode 9 or in the first part of it that this was a way to write Giorgio off the show. And I didn't really I wasn't sure if that's what's going to happen. I was a little disappointed, but I'm like, why are you making such a big deal out of this? So in episode 10, when you do learn that she's ultimately being written off the show, at least for now, it seems like forever, but who knows? It's timey-wimey. That I like that they did really give her a lot. Like, she's an important character. She means a lot to Michael. I like that they actually gave her time to process this end, and that they didn't just kill her off, which would be an easy thing to do.
Well, they can't kill her off because she's going to be on Section 31.
She's getting her own show.
Shut up.
Yeah,
cool.
dude, she's going to be on the show with Sexy Vogue. I only know him as Sexy Vogue. I'm sorry. I'm sure he has another name,
Vogue.
but he's like.
See,
Burnham
I don't know
Sexy
why I have a
X.
Star Trek podcast. I don't know shit about shit. I watch the main show. I haven't even watched Lower Decks. I don't.
What?
You started talking about the animated series before. I didn't even know that existed. Why am I here?
You're like I am with my friends who are Star Wars super fans. Because I'm exactly that way with Star Wars. I like it. I'll watch the main stuff, but when they start going in about extended universe and animated series, I'm just yeah, whatever. I didn't watch
same.
that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't,
Steve.
I was like,
you don't have a Star Wars podcast.
Dark Saber.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I do not have a Star Wars podcast.
I'll be the audience stand-in for all of my amazing guests that actually know about Star Trek and also do their research before they come on board. No pun intended. Wow. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so she's going to be on Section 31. We've
ahead.
established that. Continue. Sorry.
That's delightful.
I thought it was because I really like the character of Mirror Giorgio. And I really like what Michelle Yeoh has done with her. And I love how sassy she is and how sarcastic she is and how cutting and biting she is. I think she's a great character. And given what they had to accomplish with her as far as not only writing her off the show and setting her up for her own series at some point, but also wanting it to have sort of an emotional impact and wanting to kind of rehabilitate her so that she can be a protagonist of her own show. I think they probably did as good of a job as they could have, but I'm still not entirely sold on her being rehabbed into a more heroic character. There were moments in this episode where she's saying things, she's saying the right things. When she's telling the mirror version of Michael, she's telling her, I've seen the way life can be. I've seen another way to live, and it's a wonderful, and we can do things a different way, and we can. And I'm like, when did she change?
Right.
It feels like she's come such a long way. And I guess it's not impossible that she could have changed in her heart at some point, and she's just been still treating everybody like shit because, she doesn't want to be that revealing or open or whatever, or she feels, vulnerable or insecure about it. But I don't remember seeing any indication that she, other than her personal relationship with Michael, that she had really changed as far as how she looked at the world.
I think that she could still be an asshole and not be a murderous rampagey person. You know what I mean? She can still be kind of disarming and at the end when they had all of those the toasts to Philippa, I kind of liked that they were she's kind of a shitbag, but somehow she found her way into our hearts, Yeah,
and I think it's funny because this is also, I totally agree that they kind of didn't earn that beat where she's oh, now I love Kelpians or whatever at the end.
Yeah, totally.
But at the same time, it feels like the mirror universe also has changed in ways that they didn't really earn, because it started out that the mirror universe was basically, it wasn't even sustainable. It was this fantastical hyper-fascism that would never work because everyone is just constantly murdering each other at rates that don't, you can't even replace people at the rate that they were murdering them. And then in this episode, in this two-parter, suddenly mirror universe is more just the dark, sarcastic, bitchy version of our universe, where it's instead of saying black alert, they're black alert. They have this, I love that scene on the bridge where they're Captain, we're being impaled. And it was like, okay, so now it's just like, I don't know, it's like the Ryan Murphy version of Star Trek instead of,
Oh my God.
like,
I would love to watch that show.
I mean, but
I
that
would
was
totally
kind
watch
of what
that
it
show.
felt like they were gesturing at.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made sense that somehow now it was just like the bitchy, slightly murdery version.
I do see. I don't disagree with any of this. Like they rushed character development because I think they must have been like, oh shit, we got to do this now, kind of thing.
Right.
But I do think it sets it up now that I know that she's going to have her own show to be like a 7 of 9 character, really, right? A character that's really struggling with like their own upbringing and their own instincts versus like knowing that there's another way. And like that tension, I think, is like perfect for Star Trek, right? I think it's a you know, she's going to meet people that are going to challenge her. She's going to like go back and forth, and it's about like emotional growth. And so we'll see if they can handle that, because I feel like
well, also, I mean, remember, Section 31 is basically like the sort of CIA dirty tricks wing of Starfleet, right? Which is why Voq is going to go there too, because it's like people who are loyal but also aren't afraid to like just, you know, murder.
Oh, this is going to be terrible then.
It could be terrible or it could be amazing. Like, if it really is Ryan Murphy doing Star Trek. I mean, not actual Ryan Murphy, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, if it just is like the sort of bitchy, pointy, angry, we do dirty tricks version. I don't know. It probably will be terrible.
I wonder if all the different shows that they're like spooling off here, which is new for Star Trek, right? Like, this is not. I wonder if like each is going to have its own particular flavor, right? And so we can't, it's going to be, the analysis of it is going to have to be a lot different than this feels like Star Trek or doesn't feel like Star Trek. Like, not that I'm reducing what we're doing to that, but I tend to fall into that of like, oh, these are the moments, like, you know, when the episode this season where Michael had to go and prove herself to the council of folks to get the information. Like, I was like, that's fucking Star Trek right there, man. It's like dumb and boring and wonderful and kind of makes you cry a little bit because it's like talking about ethics. But I don't think we're going to be able to keep doing that, or like, you know, each of these shows are going to have a different tone and a different flavor. So that's interesting. That'll be interesting. Yeah. I don't really like the sort of like evil incognito CIA kind of machinations. Like, it feels like the opposite of what Starfleet stands for. And also Starfleet is military, and I don't like that we glorify and glamorize military anyways. So like, you know, I don't know. That's
I know there are Star Trek fans that have been slobbering for a Section 31 series pretty much ever since they introduced the concept way back in Deep Space Nine. I have never really been one of them. Like, I will watch the show, and I mean, it may very well be a great show. Like, especially if it's centered on Georgiou and they write her as well as they could. But I mean, yeah, it's one of those ideas where it's like just the concept itself doesn't sell me on it.
Yeah, like, is it going to be a J.J. Abrams TV show, Star Trek? Like, that would be my worst fucking nightmare.
Well, but see, and not see, I like the Abrams movies for the most part, but shut the fuck up about J.J. Abrams, my God. But you know, like when I heard that they were going to do the Captain Pike show, like, I was sold on that as soon as they said that. I was like, oh, it's going to like a throwback classic Star Trek show about Captain Pike's version of the Enterprise. I'm going to watch that no matter what. When they said Section 31 series, I was like, well, okay, I'll watch it. I'll give it a shot. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it won't. Yeah. Like, the idea doesn't grab me, but I'm open to it being a good show. I did like that they didn't go full like last act Grinch with Georgiou. Like, she doesn't completely turn into a good person. You see, like, before she goes back through the door and she says her goodbyes, there are indications when she's still the Emperor that she's still pretty brutal. She's just not openly committing genocide anymore.
Yeah.
You know, she's still doing underhanded things. She's still violent. She hasn't completely reformed, but she's figured out, oh, you don't have to murder everybody.
Also, you don't have to be like a cannibal anymore, because I mean, I know that Kelpians are not her species, but it's another sentient group of creatures. You know, it's that's kind of the idea of cannibalism, is don't eat other people that you can have a conversation with. So it's like
Great definition.
That's a good rule. It's just a general rule. It's a
just
good
like
rule
one
to
of
live
those,
by.
you'd think it would be kind of part of the Prime Directive or something, but like, yeah. So I think she's reformed a little, but she's going to fit in well in Section 31 because that's the place where you can be kind of ruthless and bloodthirsty, but still step back from, as you said, like full genocide and full just like eating people's brains for fun.
So we have a little bit more of Carl, the Guardian of Forever, the space-time cop. And, he's not like, he's important in this two-parter, but like we don't see a ton of him. But Annalee did a bunch of research, apparently, and came very prepared that there is a history of the Guardian of Forever in Star Trek.
That's right. Well, I watched the extremely important animated series episode yesteryear to prepare for this Guardian of Forever return. And as I'm sure all of you recall, Guardian of Forever is when Spock travels through time and accidentally changes history. This is like what always happens in Guardian of Forever type episodes is like you go back, you screw everything up, then you have to go back and re-screw it up even more. So Spock has to go back and save his own life in history, in Vulcan history. And in the process, we meet a very important Star Trek character, Ichaya, who was the saber-toothed cat pet of Spock when he was a kid. And Spock is still really sad that Ichaya unfortunately died during this episode in the history of Spock's life. So I think, how relevant is this information to our present day incarnation of the Guardian of Forever? Not much, other than it seems like the Guardian of Forever, now the Guardian of Forever is in hiding. So he used to be, I guess, easier to find, and now he has to move from planet to planet because he's, like a refugee from the temporal Cold War, or the Time Wars. And so the only other thing I would say is that it really does seem amazing that every time they use the Guardian of Forever, they manage to screw something up in their personal lives that they have to fix. And that was kind of interesting, too, that it seems, again, going back to my point about therapy, it just seems like a lot of this is about, like, how do we do work on ourselves? Like, how do we kind of re-encounter ourselves and fix it up? And certainly that's what Georgiou is having to do, right, is kind of go back and revisit herself and kind of replay events in a way that's slightly better. There's still murder, but less. And
less murder.
And also I would point out that Grudge remains alive. So nothing happens to Grudge. So no pets are harmed in this version. Not that that's really relevant, but I just want to throw that in.
But important.
Yeah, important.
Important.
Should have
to remind the writers that this is essential for us as viewers.
I feel like there's a lot
no pets are being harmed.
There's a lot of work that's done in the scripts to make sure that we know that they know that Grudge is still on that ship, on Book's ship, and like
that shit with when Grudge is enormous, by the way. When you see like I don't know if the cat has a gender, but when you see the cat like being held, you're like, holy shit, you're enormous. And Book is like, she's favoring her left front paw. Can you take a look? And I was like, God, you're so hot. Could you be any hotter?
No.
I love you. I just love you so much.
Yeah.
You and Michael forever with Grudge. And I want that. Look, I don't want Michael to like leave the main cast, but I really want the Michael and Book like rogue renegade spinoff so much.
I think
that would be...
Yeah, we need to have more episodes that are just them, I think. That would be really great. Except now he's kind of... one of the things that happened in this episode was that Book is making himself useful to the science team. So he's joined the Gay Mushroom science crew, which is exciting. It's nice to see him doing that and seeing how it's...
I just don't want him to get sucked into Starfleet, but I also don't see any other future for that because unless they break up Michael and Book, which there was a little something in the like next episode teaser about like, I'm not going to see you for a while or whatever kind of bullshit. But I don't want him to become Starfleet. I really, really don't. And I really wanted Michael to leave Starfleet, even though I knew that wasn't going to happen because of the structure of the storytelling of the show. But
Honestly, and I'm not trying to jinx it, and I really hope I'm wrong about this, but I will be very happy if Book makes it out of this season alive.
No.
Oh God.
They can't do that.
Because I'll tell you why. Because it was a couple episodes ago. There's that when Book and Saru have that moment in the corridor when Book is like, hey, since I'm going to be around, maybe I can make myself useful. And Saru gives him that meaningful look, and he says, "Well, I'm sure that you will have the opportunity to prove yourself at some point."
Yeah, but I felt
and I saw that,
no.
and I thought,
If he
"Oh shit, they're going to kill him."
sacrifices himself.
But I felt like that was.
Yeah.
I thought that was more
I
set
hope
up.
I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong.
I feel like that's more
hope
set
I'm
up for
wrong.
like him popping into both of these episodes, being like, "I got something. I can do something. I got something. Look at me. I got a
I hope
thing."
that's it.
I think that's
I
more
hope
of
so
what it
hope
too,
that's
was.
it.
because
I hope that's it.
I am not interested in having like the cool black guy sacrifice himself for our crew. That is not.
Nor am I. But if they don't do that, then because like I'm not sure what his future on the show is, because I don't see him becoming a Starfleet guy, because that would be kind of boring with a character like
Maybe
that.
he needs to go rebuild his home world or something. Like that's
Yeah,
how they get him off the show, which I
yeah.
don't want even a little bit.
I don't think he and Michael are going to be together at the end, which is unfortunate.
I hate you. You're
like,
never coming
for
back
her.
on the show ever again.
No, I'm just trying to read the tea leaves. It's like, I'm thinking like I'm trying to figure out how they're going to move these. I would love it if he just stayed on the ship and it was just like this. And like 2 or 3 times a season, there was some reason for him and Michael or him and a randomly selected crew member to get on his ship and go off and have a wacky adventure. I would love that. I don't think that's what they're going to do. But I would absolutely
You don't
love
think
that.
he can
and just
be-
have Book be there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is he would just be kind of their internal like.
He would just be
Yeah,
there.
He's like an
but he has
intern.
he's like their. I want to say. I keep wanting to say like he's like their internal external guy. He's like the guy who has his own ship who can like boop out of.
Oh no! This is perfect. He's like their sexy cat daddy version of Neelix. He has his own ship.
Wow, that's
he's
not-
he's more familiar. He's
That
more
just
familiar.
broke my
I'm
brain
sorry.
a little bit.
Boy, I'm really getting kicked off the show now.
I love sexy cat daddy though. That's a good.
Sexy cat daddy Neelix. He's because he knows more about this era than they do. Just like Neelix knew more about the Delta Quadrant than the Voyager crew
true.
did. He has his own ship, so he can go out and do his own shit if he needs to. He could be sort of like their guide in this bold new future that they still don't quite have figured out. And that would justify his presence on the ship, and they wouldn't have to kill him, and they wouldn't have to have him and Michael break up. He could just be there, and there's a justification for it. And
I don't think they're going to kill
He's
him. I really don't.
He's the voice of
I
like
really hope they don't,
environmentalism
'cause he's a great
too,
character.
which is one of the things
Yeah.
that they've
Yeah.
barely done anything with. Like where he's kind of
spin-off show.
It's like, yeah, because he's kind of like a Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them character in a way, because he's got all these magical kind of animals that he rescues. And I mean, they're not
Which they
magical,
don't use
but
nearly enough.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're saying.
I don't know. Yeah, this is all very depressing. But I think that
Yeah.
at least Giorgio is going to be hanging out with Sexy Voke, and at least for now, Burnham and Book are hooking up. So we can just rest with that for now.
We will. Yes. Thank you for bringing it back. I appreciate it. I was a little, I didn't know what to do with all of that bullshit that was just put into the universe.
The Guardian of Forever is a nice old guy named Carl.
Apparently.
Who
mean,
reads newspapers.
Actually, I thought when I watched that episode, and then like the next day was the season finale of The Mandalorian, and I thought, oh, it's fan service week.
We don't talk about that here.
Because it was like they brought back the Guardian of Forever on Star Trek, and they're like, hey, what do you hey nerds, remember this?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, the Guardian of Forever, and then they do the season finale of The Mandalorian, and they did the same thing. They're like, hey nerds, remember this? And I was like, oh, it's fan service week. Nobody
it
told
is
me.
fan service. The holidays are always fan service time. It's true.
We want all that
Merry
warm fuzzies.
Christmas.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
a lot happens in episode 11, which I don't hate until I do. Like I was here for a lot of this, and like, okay, so you've got. I need to say this again, and I'm saying this every time. So Gray is back. Adira is like, holy shit, you're back. And I love that Stamets is like talks to Gray and then walks away. Like that whole scene I thought was adorable.
Yeah.
I still hate that like the two gender nonconforming people are like in a couple and one is in each other's head. And also the whole like having your lover in your head thing is not like, that's just a mess. So that's a little frustrating to me still. But I don't know what they're going to do with Gray. I feel like this is a very strange, interesting thing. Is Gray going to like be able to form somehow? Because they were like, Gray was talking about how he's stuck and can't interact with anyone else, which I thought was like really interesting. I just don't know what they're doing with all of this. So
I feel like it's really strange that all of the queer couples, like one of them is either undead or invisible, or there was like Tilly's like mushroom girlfriend. I don't even know what that was. It was like a lesbian mushroom episode.
Oh, I totally forgot about her.
Seriously, was the greatest. I was like, I also want a lesbian mushroom girlfriend. But it's really, isn't it kind of odd? It's like, okay, so every queer couple has some kind of weird, I don't know, supernatural element to their relationship.
Well, and I'm just frustrated with, I'm so excited that Star Trek has a non-binary and a trans character. I'm so excited by this.
Me too.
I'm very frustrated with the particulars of it. Right? Like, I'm very frustrated with, like, why are gender pronouns an issue at this time in the world? Like, that's weird. That the way that we talked about this last episode, but the way that they, like, declared their pronouns was very weird, as if anyone was, like, challenging that. Like, or they had to come out. Why would you have to come out? Why is that the thing that we're dealing with this far into the future? And then the fact that the trans character is dead, but like stuck in, it's just, I find all that frustrating.
Yeah.
But
I think they need to find a, I hope that they're building up, especially with that scene you mentioned where Gray is like, it's frustrating that I can't interact with anybody else. I hope that's a foreshadowing of somehow they're going to pull some Star Trek stuff and pop him out of her head somehow. I hope that's where they're building to. Yeah.
Adira is they.
They. Sorry, I misgendered that. Adira is they, and Gray is he. Yeah. But I hope that's what they're building up to.
I do too.
I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's Star Trek.
Also, just I want to shout out
emitter, blah blah blah.
Us like clarifying pronouns and stuff right now. I just want to shout out. I've been reading Charlie Jane's new book that you all should pre-order, and I love in it, which I'm sure Annalie you've already read and been a part of. But I love in it that there is this whole like when someone introduces themselves, their pronoun is just announced, and it's just no muss, no fuss. And I'm like, oh, cool. This is someone who's actually thought about like future and like the evolution of progressive politics in a way that makes a lot of sense. And it was just. I was cheering.
Yeah, I love that.
I was like, this is what I want.
Yeah, in Charlie's vision, like the universal translators just know your pronoun. And so it's automatic. No, you can't misgender someone because the universal translator always gets it right, which I was like, yes, thank you.
Which is incredible. I would love that.
That's a great idea.
It's so good. It's
perfect.
I think the reason that I think they had to have that scene on Discovery was for our benefit,
of course.
You know?
But it was clunky.
And clearly, it was clunky, and clearly because I mean, just like 30 seconds ago, I just unthinkingly misgendered Adira. It's necessary. You know, we need to have that. It needs to be stated, like to have the character say, well, actually, I'd prefer to be referred to as they from now on, even though in that future, it probably wouldn't be a big deal at all. It wouldn't be something they think about at all. But for us,
in our Discord, in Feminist Frequencies Discord, someone brought up that like maybe it's not a problem, like gender pronouns aren't an issue in the future. It's that Adira like decided they were like just that their pronoun is changing and that their identity, they want their pronoun to match their identity. But the way that it was done felt so defensive, as opposed to just like, hey, shout out, let everyone know that this is what's happening now, like that kind of thing. So, but that's just a hypothesis because none of that was made clear on the show at all. So anyways, all of this is to say that like we are obviously going to nitpick the hell out of the way that this is done, even though because like it's the first time, it's the only one in this like huge monumental moment. And no matter what they did, we would have been like, but well, it's true. So I'm gonna just call myself out on that. Okay.
It does, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it does feel, I agree with you. And I think we talked about this last time I was on too. Like, it feels weird that the queer characters are sort of sequestered together. And it feels like maybe the writers were like, well, we can't just have trans characters there. That's boring. We have to have some Star Trek shit happen. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, you could just have them there. I mean, it probably wouldn't be that much of a problem, but sure, have some Star Trek shit happen.
No, you could have just had a character who's just trans, and it's like, that's it. It's just a trans actor playing this character, and everybody just genders them correctly, and that's it.
Yeah, totally. Okay, anyway, so that's not at all an important part of this episode, although I find it to be really important.
It was a very nice moment. It was a good scene.
And Stamets, who's like hardcore science, is like, yes, I believe you. I believe that you're not losing your mind and that there is a thing happening that's real. And like I don't really believe it in the character of Stamets, but I love it. Like I'm not going to question it. I really like this dynamic that they have. I loved that moment where Adira is just like, holy crap, like these people all love each other and they're a family and I don't have family and I'm alone and Gray left me and I'm a hormonal teenager and like all of that stuff. And like Stamets being like, no, you're a part of this now. Like that, yeah. I just thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, it was a good moment. He's become very sympathetic.
Yeah.
Stamets has really come along nicely this season.
Horrible nightmare in the first season. I hated him so much.
I appreciate that they have allowed you when you mentioned about how he's like hardcore science guy, but they've allowed him to take into account the fact that he has had these incredible experiences on the show up to this point, so that he's not they're not like Agent Scullying him, where no matter what he experiences, he never incorporates any of the information. From his experience, it's like he never changes. And in this, it's like when he was talking to Adira at the beginning of the whole, oh, my dead boyfriend lives in my head now thing, and he was like, look, I've been through some shit too that's not all that unlike that, and maybe to someone else it would sound weird, but it makes perfect sense to me because of what's happened to me. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly how a rational, reasonable person would react.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's that kind of those moments of radical inclusiveness where it feels like Star Trek disco is very Star Trek, like what we think of as being very Star Trek. And it's, it's nice because it's a metaphor for queerness and gender queerness, but it's also about being non-neurotypical and about how do you treat someone whose brain doesn't work like your brain. Instead of being like, ooh, what? You're hearing voices? You're just like, oh, okay. So that's what's going on with your brain. Great. You're still our friend.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I really like that.
All right. So the bulk of this episode is is about Discovery figures out that they go to sorry, I have too many different notes. They find out that the call from Dr. Issa, who is the only other Kelpian that they've seen so far. I guess the race has been exterminated or something difficult, challenging. I don't remember what happened to them in this timeline. So they go to the Verubin Nebula, which is where this distress call was coming from 100 years ago, and they see that there's a life sign on the on the planet. Or the ship or whatever. So that's like the big insinuating moment. They find out that Osira is about to attack Kaminar, which is the Kelpian homeworld, I think. Because what's his name? Our favorite captain who's
Saru.
Yes. I'm like looking at both of you being like, what is it?
Come on, help me out. Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, Saru. Well, Saru's just like, oh my God. Anyways, okay. So they go down. They get there. There's a bunch of shit that happens. Book comes in and saves the day and starts to sacrifice himself. And he's just so fucking hot and wonderful. And they get to the planet and everyone looks different, which I thought was fucking hilarious and kind of wonderful. Like, I'm doing a lot of exposition here just to set us up into what we're talking about. But there's the Dr. Issa has a baby. The kid is born and like raised by inside of a hollow program with hollows, like hollow people. Mm-hmm. And so when they land, when the away crew lands on the planet, they all look different to fit into the program, which I thought was like, one's a Bajoran, one's a Trill, and one's a human, which I thought was a really interesting thing. And the fact that this kid has been raised for 100 years on this Holosuite, like all of this is interesting. I'm here. Like I'm on board for all of this up until this point. Like, right? Okay. Thoughts before we get into what this means.
I thought my first thought when they beamed down to the planet and they were all different, I thought, and it's the same thing I thought when Giorgio and Burnham beamed down to the snowy planet at the beginning of the last two-parter, and there was like an old white guy and a door in the middle of nowhere. I thought, okay, this is some classic Star Trek shit.
But also, it's not like they don't have humans. So why couldn't they just be humans with different clothes?
Yeah,
you know,
but
I still
just
loved
be
it.
themselves. Yeah, because they also
I
have
know,
Kelpians.
Yeah.
It felt random. It felt like they were just randomly assigned different species. And I was like, well, okay, well, good for Doug Jones. You know what? He doesn't have to wear the Kelpie makeup.
I thought that was sweet.
And it's a nice reminder that it's not just the makeup and the character design. He is actually a great actor. You know,
sure.
I mean, because he did so good in this episode at playing the human version of Saru, and still playing Saru, but playing it without the prosthetics. I thought it was just really, really well done. But yeah, that was my first thought was, oh, this is and they've done this a couple times this season. It feels like almost they made a concerted effort to try and come up with at least episode concepts that harken back to like, I'm not just, TNG, DS9 era stuff, but like TOS classic Star Trek stuff, like just weird, inexplicable stuff that they beam down into the middle of, and you're just like, oh, it's classic Star Trek.
That's really true. And I kept thinking that the episode, which winds up being about like this kind of man-child with superpowers, was also very original series, where there's at least
very much
2 episodes about out-of-control kids who have this like apocalyptic superpower. And so to me, that was incredibly disappointing as a plot device.
Yes.
And just, I mean, okay, the burn is caused by like a man-child with superpowers. Like, I get that the Trump era has kind of rewritten everything, but like, come on. Like,
well,
we know how wrong that can go now.
I think that this new, like the new Trek shows, like Picard included in this, is that they set up these huge mysteries that are really interesting and then just fail to deliver a decent answer to them, like over and over again. And you're just like, this is what caused the burn. Like, I was so fucking mad. I was so mad. Like, it's just... So a couple of things.
I was gonna say one more thing, especially after we
please.
had all of this ramp up with like incredibly intricate like diplomatic relations and like political maneuvering, and it's like,
and nobody else figured this out.
Yeah,
in 125 years.
And the answer isn't political. That's like what really pissed me off. It was like, well, but it's all, there's like the Vulcans and the Romulans, and like, it's just an angry child, okay?
And here's the thing is, if this kid was raised by this holosuite of characters, like, would he really be as emotionally stunted? Like, because the idea is that he lives at the site of trauma, like the age of trauma, right?
Yeah.
That he didn't grow up to be a functioning adult. I don't really know what language to use here. That's not like, I don't want to, I feel like there's a lot of territory here that could be super ableist in terms of like how we think about this character. But I don't really buy it, because you have an enormous amount of programs that are very sophisticated. And like, is it the being alone for that long? Would you actually feel alone if you had all these characters? You obviously know a lot. I don't know. I'm not fully immersed in this thing. I did not like the like having to face your fears kind of, the monster was something that he created and da-da-da-da. Like, that's fine. I'm here for that. But like that causing the burn, and that they can't leave until they literally can't leave the space, the program, until they force this kid to face his fears, which is not a thing you can force people to do.
Well, you can, I guess, if their fears have been like manifested through whatever is going on.
Right.
Okay, can I tell you my incredibly paranoid theory about what's actually happening in this episode?
Please.
Oh boy, please.
Okay, so we know that there's all these things about the Kelpian brains that we're still trying to understand, right? Like, they've been oppressed for this really long time by the Ba'ul, who they used to oppress, right, on their homeworld. And then the Ba'ul took over and started oppressing them and kills Kelpians before they go through their brain puberty, right? And when they go through brain puberty, they become they become much more, they become stronger and more intelligent and all this other stuff. Okay, so now we also know in this episode that this man-baby Kelpian probably has intertwingled his brain with like the dilithium in some way, and that's why he caused the burn, because somehow he's like a space-time thingamajigger now. Because I mean, I'm just saying this based on kind of hints that we've been given. We don't really know if this is what has happened, but like they hint that there's something kind of like fantastical that's happened to his brain because he matured in this space full of dilithium. So, okay, so here's my paranoid theory, is that they're actually heading toward justifying the fact that the Kelpians were oppressed by these colonizing bastards who ate them. Because, in fact, if their brains mature for long enough, they become like Dark Phoenix or something. They become overpowered. Ooh. They're so powerful that their brains can like literally destroy the galaxy or destroy the universe, right? So actually they needed to be held back. They needed to be prevented from like self-actualizing through brain puberty because they're so dangerous. So
also, to add to your conspiracy theory, they do talk about they do make it a major point to bring up the Vahari again in episode 10 and compare what Georgiou's going through with which I think is completely unfair and unreasonable. But what the comparison of what Georgiou's going through with what the Kelpians have to go through. Mm-hmm. So like they are reminding us of this thing that we didn't think about for a long time.
Yes. And so, and we, we don't know what Kelpian brains are capable of, because we haven't ever really seen a Kelpian fully mature. This is, and we certainly haven't seen one mature on like planet dilithium. So it might just be that Kelpian brains are somehow compatible with materials that alter space-time, and then they can turn into, like I said, like the Dark Phoenix of the Kelpian world. So the reason why I call this a paranoid conspiracy theory is just because it would be so annoying to have a plot point that winds up kind of backward justifying this horrific colonial relationship between the Ba'ul and the Kelpians, where it's like, well, we put these chains on you to, save the universe and like save you from yourself. So if they do that, I am going to smack everyone. Just everyone on the street. I'm just going to walk up to people on the street and smack them.
You don't know what this is about, but trust me.
Trust me, you deserve it.
This is completely justified. I do. It feels like with the way this episode ends, with the way the cliffhanger was going, it feels like they're trying to kind of move away from it for the last two episodes. Like it feels like almost like, well, we told you what caused the burn, so now we can move on. You know what I mean?
I hope that's right.
Because I mean, what your conspiracy theory does sound, it's upsettingly plausible.
I know, right? I mean, I was like, wait, maybe.
Yeah, like they wouldn't do that, would they?
They would.
But they would. So I hope that it doesn't go in that direction for all the reasons you just said. But it does. That's one of the things that, because I had the same sort of quibble that you had, Anita, about the revelation of the cause of the burn, which is like, and it's because they've had this problem. They had the same problem in Picard. They had the same problem in season 2 of Discovery, which is they build up this mystery for 8/10 of the season, and then it's like, guess what? It's this, and by that point, no matter what it is, it's going to be disappointing because they've built up to it so much, and you're just like, oh. Okay, like it didn't piss me off. I wasn't annoyed when they said this is what caused the burn. I reacted how I predicted I would. I was just like, oh, okay. I guess that's what it is then.
I fucking hate it. I think it's so stupid. And Annalie, I didn't put that connection together, but that's totally it. Is that it's not a political issue. It's like a completely helplessly fabricated nothing like, and it wasn't even, the kid suffered because he was raised alone, but it wasn't like some, like, I don't know, man. It really
it wasn't
made me real
like
mad.
the Romulans had teamed up with somebody to try to cripple the Federation, or you know what I mean? Like it felt like,
or see, even if it was like, oh, sorry.
No, I'm just trying to say, like, it would have been much more interesting to me if it had been like, oh, there was a secret alliance of groups that wanted to prevent the Federation from continuing its spread, and so they came up with this plan. Like that would have been much more satisfying.
Yeah. And I would be okay that the burn was an accident. Like they were insinuating with the Vulcans, right? Mm-hmm. That it was like an experiment gone wrong or something like that. Like I would be okay with that if it made sense in the context of we were doing this thing and yada yada yada, but not this. Like I don't know. Are the writers patting themselves on the back here, being like, we came up with something nobody would have guessed? And I'm like, okay, but there's a reason we never would have guessed this.
That doesn't make it good. That doesn't mean it's good just because we didn't guess.
But at least they get to have a therapeutic moment with Dr. Culber, like helping a child.
Culber,
and
like
singing
you're
lullabies.
saying, Culber this season is so delightful, and I really hope they're not going to kill him off again in the season or something like that.
Oh,
like,
that would be
they
awful.
Can't. I think that
There's
the
no way.
internet would literally explode. It would not.
Yeah.
But they did do a whole thing. Well, I guess they did a whole thing to reaffirm that he had previously died, because they did a whole thing with Stamets about like, don't go, being stuck there. I don't think they will, but there is always that fear.
Yeah, I think they'll do some nasty thing to another character. Like, it is really possible that Book will be killed. That maybe that'll be our, Steve, you now put the terror
I don't
into
want anybody
me.
being mad. Don't be mad at me if that happens. Don't shoot the messenger.
Annalie's going to come over and slap you. That's what's going to happen.
well, but apparently everybody's going to get slapped.
Everyone on the trail to Steve is going to get slapped. I am just going to stay far away from that.
A swath of destruction.
No, I just think it's all
so the other thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is that, like, and I loved this until I hated it, is that Saru leaves Tilly. Like, okay, very Star Trek, right? Michael is worried that Saru's personal feelings are getting in the way of this mission. Totally, 100% that's happening. And like, cool, let's explore that. I love this, right? Leaders are human too. And then he leaves Tilly in charge, and Michael gives Tilly this sweet prep talk, which reminded me of like the best moments of season 1, which were very few and far between, of just like the two of them together. And so Tilly is like doing her thing, like being the captain, and everyone is supporting her, and like whatever. We've talked about how kind of stupid it is that Tilly is captain, but I love it. Like I absolutely fucking love it. And then they set something up so that Tilly is forced to fail of no fault of her own. There's literally nothing she could have done to avoid Osira's attack and like anticipated it or strategized around it or whatever. The only thing that they can do now, and they did this in the preview, is that like Tilly will figure out a way to get out of it, right? But like, think about it. She's going to be forever fucked up that she failed in her first command. And she's going to think it's her fault when it's not. And I just hate that they set this up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I bet she'll end up triumphing enough that she'll learn a valuable lesson, but like won't be permanently traumatized. I love also that we found out about the weird like clitoris on the bottom of the chair, whatever. I was like, and all of the captains have been like rubbing it, and I was like, oh, that's really nice.
This is really dumb, but during lockdown, I had a friend help me build a custom desk, and there is a little knot, like the knots where it pops out, like the center pops out, like right kind of where my hand would sit. And I just rub it all the time. And I just like feel it in the texture of it. And like when I'm thinking or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, that's the same thing, right? Where you just take a minute and you feel this like touching stone. I loved it. I thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
really me too. Cool. I really liked that.
There were definitely great moments. And I did love that Tilly rises to the challenge of smack talk. And so you saw a little bit of Killy in there. You know, like it was good. It was like, oh, that makes sense that she would actually be able to do this. So
I still think Osira is the worst casting. Like, I don't buy that this person that looks and acts and talks like this is this like big bad ruling the universe to rival everybody. Like, I hate the casting
Is she
of this
like
character.
the leader of the chain, or is she kind of like their Darth Vader? Like she's some kind of like military leader, or is she actually the big boss of the whole chain? I can't actually figure out the politics of the chain.
Yeah, she doesn't. I mean, I think the problem with her as a villain is that she never she seems to me just as kind of like a space gangster.
Yes, totally.
And it's like I
a
know
space
that
gangster
like
that's fucking everything up for everyone.
Yeah,
And has
but
like
it's
snake tentacles that can take over
Yeah.
ships now.
But it's like I know that the Federation and Starfleet are snake
That
tentacles.
was like that was the wrong
was no
animal,
I,
but okay.
I knew what you meant. Snaky tentacles.
I know that the Federation and Starfleet are greatly diminished in this time period, but still, it feels a little weird that like all of Starfleet and all of the Federation are being bedeviled by someone who feels like a space gangster, feels like someone who would have been a villain on like one episode of Next Generation. And it's like she's the big bad of the whole season. And I don't think they've done a good job of establishing the scope of her
Full
villainy.
agree.
Totally.
You know?
And what also they're wrapping everything up with a bow here is what's happening. Because one, how can she pretend to be a Federation ship? How did she get there when she doesn't have a spore drive and there's not like does she have I mean she probably has she probably has some dilithium, but even then
Yeah.
I don't know how far apart these places are, but it's made to seem like people can't travel very far very quickly.
Right.
You know, why does she all of a sudden have snake tentacles when like she didn't have that in their last fight? Did she develop it over the last like 30 days? Like this new technology thing? I don't know. I just a lot of things felt very convenient in order for Osyraa to be able to take over Discovery.
Yeah, I totally
And they
agree.
could just all beam on board all of a sudden? Like were the shields down to nothing? I don't like
They
I don't know.
actually weren't down to
Yeah.
nothing, and it was
Right.
it was very like I said. I still want to understand the politics of the chain. Are they like the evil EU? Like, are they a coalition? Are they gangsters? Are they
Right.
another like version of the Federation in the sense that they have a big, huge part of space? Or I just don't get what they are. So I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will learn.
Well, that'd be
in the
nice.
next two episodes.
I would
actually we might not. We're just gonna. I suspect Osyraa is gonna get if this season is tied up with a bow. Osyraa is gonna get knocked out of her post. You know, like they're gonna find like they're gonna have this dilithium resource, and like maybe the next season is about the Federation rebuilding or some shit like that. But maybe not. Osyraa might survive, and then it's more Osyraa battles. But I doubt it.
Well, I think the chain is still going to be a big bad, maybe, but I don't know. I keep thinking you guys have probably already talked about this, but I keep thinking that Admiral Salt and Pepper or whatever his name is, Admiral Hair Club for Men, is like in league with the chain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does. He seems shifty.
He's always like, oh, the chain is attacking, but we wouldn't want you guys to go there. Why don't you go to the other side of the galaxy? And it's like, why not? Why don't you want us to come and intervene? I don't know. Seems weird.
That is interesting. I don't want to think badly of him. Although it's hard not to because they're playing it very like I don't know what the word is. They're playing it very like it could go either way.
Mhm.
I was saying that last the last episode that I liked that he had that sort of moment with Saru instead of just being like, I was doubtful of everything that you've ever done, that you ever wanted to do, and now I'll let you do everything that you want to do every time, right? But that he actually said that stuff to Saru about explaining like why sometimes it's important to remember humanity, why like making certain choices, like the sometimes it's not about the greater good kind of thing, and you have to like take care of your crew and that sort of stuff. So I like that humanized or brought it back to like, okay, he's like he cares, but he's definitely. And this is part of the like the larger arc that I've struggled with is like they keep defending the Federation as if it's the same thing that it was 900 years ago and not listening to every single person that's like Federation shady, Federation shady, Federation shady. Like why are you still like roaming the universe being like we're fighting for the Federation when you're like, I don't know anything about them.
It's like, dudes, you're fighting for the Holy Roman Empire. Are you sure about that?
Right.
I don't get it. So I don't know, man. We'll see. We got 2 more episodes left. I'm sure a lot of things will happen that will be very frustrating. We'll be like, how did they jibble-jabble that together?
I'm sure there'll be a lot more scenes of everyone hugging and crying too. Like that's, there'll have to be like at least
I sure hope
10
so.
minutes of hugging and crying that are totally unearned, and then we don't get any action.
And I'll get super emotional during them. Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
that will absolutely happen.
good.
I got real emotional with the Michael Giorgio stuff about Giorgio leaving. Like I couldn't help it. They're just so
Yeah.
delightful.
I
And
did too. And I knew it was totally unearned. Like intellectually, I knew I should not be this moved by this, but I was.
They have done
totally
a really good job with Michael this season, an exceptional job with Michael in the way that's like allowing Sonequa Martin Green to really act in a way that I didn't really find her that compelling before. But like they're giving her a lot more to work with, a lot more complexity. And I think that like just everything with Michael this season for me, I'm just like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I will follow this. I will believe this because it's just better.
It is
They're just doing better with her.
I love that they're now in the far future. To me, that's the thing
Love
that
it.
rescued the show. Like, I always wanted the show to be in the far future. And when the show was first being talked about and Brian Fuller was still involved as a showrunner, he said that he wanted each season to go further into the future. And I was like, oh my God, give me that show. And then, I got what I got. And then when we finally got to go into the future, I was like, at last, one tiny bit of what I was promised. So I hope maybe we'll go even further in the future. That would be badass.
Totally. And I don't want them to keep having to be like this and reference that and bring back this person and blah, blah, blah. Like they can, but when you're that far into the future, you have so much more to explore. And again, it's Voyager style, right? You have so much opportunity to just make shit up and bring stuff out of nothing that like, I want that, So yeah. All right, let's wrap up real quick with ratings. So you can give respective ratings on both episodes together separately, and you can rate them however you would like to rate them. It's very boundaryless, which makes everything very difficult. Who wants to go first?
I can go.
Great.
Because I already thought up my cutesy rating system. See, I will give Terra Firma Part 2 6 out of 10 editions of the Guardian of Forever's newspaper, the Star Dispatch.
Yes,
which is like the nerdiest little detail in those episodes for people who noticed it. And for Su'Kal, I will give that 3 out of 5 little comforting nubs on the bottom of the armrest of the command chair.
Ooh, I like that. I always want to
That
use
is
the
good.
little nub as my rating. Okay, I'm going to give Terra Firma Part 2 a 2 out of 5 Icheas. As you recall, Ichea is the beautiful saber-toothed cat pet from a previous episode about the Guardian of Forever. And for, oh shit, what was the name of the other episode?
It was Su'Kal.
Right.
Su'Kal.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. It's been a long hour. So I will give Su'Kal, maybe I'm going to give it like 3 out of 5 on the ganglia scale. And,
Nice.
and here's, I might raise that if it doesn't turn out that we're going to blame Kelpian brains for everything bad in the universe. So
We can definitely retroactively raise it.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah, totally. I forgot to mention that I really liked that Su'Kal is the name that is the recognition of the end of suffering. So the first child born after like suffering takes place, you name the child Su'Kal. And I think that it is a little extra because then every child will probably be named Su'Kal. But like, like this kid's going to be named Su'Kal. But I still I liked it. I liked the poetry of it.
yeah, I liked that we got a glimpse of,
Me too.
of Kelpian tradition.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I did like that a lot. I also, okay, I'm going to rate mine here. I'm just going to change my rating system on the fly because that's how we go. Okay. So, episode 10, I'm going to use snake tentacles as my rating system. And I'm going to give it I don't know, a 3.75 out of 5 because like I actually enjoyed this episode, but mostly because I thought I was really going to hate it. So, you know, we're grading on a curve here. And then episode 11, Su'Kal. This one is hard for me. And I want to rate it based on Hologram Michael and her social skills because that was delightful. I really liked almost all of this episode until I really didn't. So, like, I don't know how to rate this. I'm gonna give the parts that I really liked a 4 out of 5 Hologram Michaels and the parts that I didn't like a fucking minus 25 out of 55 Hologram Michaels because it just that ending, man, pissed me off a whole lot.
Wow, what does that even average out to?
Nothing. It's math. It's science. It's space math.
Yeah,
it's space math.
All right.
It's mushroom math.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's as scientific as the Spore Drive. Okay. Where can folks find out more about you? Do you want to plug anything you've got coming up?
You can find me on Twitter at Annalee N, and I also have a Substack newsletter called The Hypothesis. And the only thing I want to plug is that my book, 4 Lost Cities, is coming out in February after being delayed by the pandemic. So if you like archaeology and lost cities, check it out.
Hell yeah. I want to do that. If you want to send me an advanced reader copy, I'll take one.
I will make sure that you get one. I think you'll dig it. It's got some good shit.
I'm sure I will. That sounds amazing. Steve?
You can find me at youtube.com/Steve Shives, and I also co-host a couple of podcasts as a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts, which you can find at lemmylistenpodcasts.com.
Sweet.
Yay.
All right, y'all. That is it for this week. If you want to support this show, you can donate to our end of year campaign, which you can find out more about at feministfrequency.com/femfreak. We are going to be streaming on New Year's Eve. I have no idea when or what or why or how because I haven't figured any of that shit out, but follow us at twitch.tv/femfreak and you'll get notified when we go live. You can also join us in 2 weeks when my missing in action co-host, who's flaked on me this whole goddamn fucking season, Ebony Adams, our favorite, returns to talk about the last 2 episodes of the season. And I'm sure we will get a highly anticipated hair report. So thank you, everyone. Thanks both of you for joining us, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.